Hello everybody and welcome back to the Healthy Orange Movie Reviews, the show where we bring you film criticism that is honest, insightful, and not least of all fun. I'm your host Bennett Campbell Ferguson, and today I'm joined by my wonderful panel of film enthusiasts, starting with Mo Shawnette.
Am I supposed to say something?
Yeah, do you want to say something?
Hi, I didn't rehearse anything.
We don't rehearse anything ever.
Yeah.
There's no rehearsals.
We wing it.
Here.
This is a very pure method kind of thing.
Organic.
That's one word for it.
And Patrick Bellin.
Hello, I'm Patrick and I consume movies.
He does.
As do we all, voraciously. And Allie Bolt.
Hello, I didn't rehearse anything either, but I'm still here trying to fit Say Anything into my list of lists.
I don't blame you, it is truly awesome.
Yes.
And Maxwell Myers.
Hello! I went to Weird Al last night. I'm so tired.
Oh.
And I've had like 6 shots of espresso today. So, hovering somewhere between zombie and asleep.
Do you think we should do like handheld camera work to enhance the effect of the caffeine?
I don't know. You probably just shaking hands. I might just take a quick nap out of shot.
Right.
Alright, today we're doing something that I have looked forward to for a long, long time. Probably since I first started becoming a film critic. We're talking about our top 10 favorite films of all time. We're doing them in alphabetical order. There's no ranking involved because we all, love them equally like our children, right? Yes?
Like
If
a
I
children
had
that someone
them.
else made.
Sweet summer children.
If I had a child, sure. I mean, I don't know if I'd like it in some of those movies. Gross.
So without further ado, let's hear from you, Max. What is the first movie on your list?
Let's start with the letter A.
Sacre bleu!
No! A for airplane. So I love it. We were talking slightly before the video about picking a movie that we really like that's come out in, say, the last 5 or 6 years. Who knows if it's going to stand the test of time, but Airplane is almost 40 years old and still hilarious. It works off very basic principles and some people acting ridiculous, and it's hilarious. And they're also, it's one of the, you could call it one of the very first spoof movies. It's a spoof off the genre of disaster films, which were huge in the 70s, but even now you don't have to be like, oh, well, you had to have seen a disaster film to understand it. It's just pure comedy, and that's what makes it great. Leslie Nielsen made his shift from dramatic acting to comedy acting, which is so weird because you think of him today, you're like, that was just a funny man. No, apparently he was a dramatic man, and he made a good choice to do Airplane. I love it. I watch it, still laugh, and yeah, there you go.
You mentioned the pure comedy aspect. Do you think like one of the reasons why it stands the test of time so well is that it is just like unadulterated silliness? Like it's not there's not a dramatic element. It's really like pure hijinks.
I think so. I mean, you watch and there's just certain scenes where just things are there and then they're not. There's a scene where it cuts to the pilot and he has a vulture on his shoulder. And no explanation. There was never a bird ever in the movie. All of a sudden, there's a vulture on his shoulder, and you're like, is that fake or is it real? And then all of a sudden it just goes, like to stabilize itself, there's a real live vulture on his shoulder, cuts away. When it comes back, it's gone. And I think it's because of that. There's just, it's the reason that we still all kind of chuckle at fart sounds.
They throw everything at the wall and to see what sticks, and most of it
Literally.
does.
I mean, you just have people doing weird things. It's just, I think they just catch you off guard. You don't know what's gonna come, and because of that, it's funny. And I don't know, there's just something about it, and I think that might be why.
Are we all allowed to talk about these movies?
Oh yes, yeah.
That was the question I was
This
gonna
is
ask.
Max's turn.
I am the star right now.
No side conversations. All right, Allie, what's your first pick?
Okay, my first pick is Beauty and the Beast, which is one of those movies that is
We all kind of made emotional moments.
it's near and dear to my heart. Always been my favorite, Disney princess movie because Belle had brown hair and liked to read. Just pretty much the key feature there for a long time that made me like it the best. always go back to. It's my comfort movie when I'm sick, when I'm not feeling good. It's like that's what I plug in and watch. It's a lot more of the kind of the personal reasons for me why I like it. When it came out on DVD, I like emailed it to my mom. I'm like, this is all I want for Christmas. Like, I just want Beauty and the Beast on DVD. But it's just something about the feel of it, the music and the way that the music works, and even just the introduction with the stained glass and the storytelling and the score in the background is just a beautiful introduction, I think, and that never changes every time I watch it. That's one of the best parts. And some of that, I'm sure, is the sentimental value of, hearing those first notes in the background, because music is always something that cues me into stuff really quickly. But just, I don't know, the story is great, the characters are great, there's a lot of really good kind of subtext when you really get into it, in terms of even just, the Beast isn't the Beast, Gaston is the Beast. And there's a lot that you can really glean from that. Like with all fairy tales, there's a much deeper message, but I think that really stands the test of time in Beauty and the Beast.
This actually plays into something that I'm going to talk about in a bit with one of my movies. But like that, what you just said about, the Beast isn't the real Beast.
Yeah.
Like, even though we think of fairy tales maybe as being simplistic, do you think maybe the power of something like this is that, it's anything but, ultimately?
Absolutely. I think children are a lot more astute than people give them credit for, that you can really pick up a lot of nuance that, children do the same way that adults do. But yeah, I mean, watching Beauty and the Beast, even just trying to put myself back in that mindset of a child. I mean, the Beast is terrifying when he first comes on screen and he's in shadow, and there's that very dramatic face-off between him and Belle. But all throughout this story, it's Gaston who's set up as the true villain, who, doesn't listen to other people's opinions and is only all about himself and puts himself as the priority at the expense of other people. And really, the morality tale, I think, in Beauty and the Beast doesn't really have anything to do with Beauty and the Beast at all. It's how do you react to those people in the larger village, and the people like Gaston, and even the people like Fu of, are you going to kind of be complicit in the culture around you, or are you going to stand up and defend and be firm in your own convictions?
All right, I got a movie.
All right,
you
yeah,
got a
what's your
movie?
I do, yeah.
Lay it on me.
This requires a little bit of backstory.
Uh-oh.
When I was a young lad, I had a list of movies that I was gonna see when I was old enough. It was basically anything that was really violent or had really graphic sex. And at the top of that list was this Bernardo Bertolucci movie called The Dreamers. I saw the poster in the paper when I was 13, and I was like, whoa, those people look hot, and I did not know what I was getting into. This is a movie about 3 young film buffs living together in Paris in the 1960s, and their friendship, how they bond over their love of movies. And then it just takes a terrifying dark turn as they begin to manipulate each other and mess with each other's minds. But the reason why I love this movie is what you ultimately realize is that everything they do, even the really horrible things, are about trying to hang on to childhood and hang on to their innocence. There's a great scene at the end where they all just corral together in this tent in the living room, like they're little kids on a camp out. And that's what I think, that makes this movie, as disturbing as it is sometimes, really beautiful. And it was one of those movies, and I find this happens a lot with films I end up loving, where I watched it, the first time I was like, oh my god, this is horrible, And then, I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I watched it again, and I was like wow, and part of it's, seeing a movie about, film buffs, of course I relate to that. There actually aren't that many, surprisingly. But really, it's the whole thing, the story of this beautiful but doomed friendship. All right, on that enigmatic note, Patrick.
Are we still doing the alphabetical?
We are, yeah, alphabetical. Yeah.
Okay.
Didn't you read the email?
Yeah.
There was an email.
I wasn't quite sure why.
I read the email. I'm not entirely sure I replied properly to it, but there was an email.
Internal affairs.
So I can't do an all-time because it would be way too long. I didn't even reach 10, so I stuck with...
He didn't read the email.
No, I did not.
Oh, it's okay. We still like you anyways.
So, top favorites in recent memory. So, if we're going alphabetically, then the first one is Closer.
Yeah.
That was an interesting character study. There's just so much going on there with the characters, how they develop in the movie, how the story develops, and what it has to say philosophically about the nature of romantic or sexual love. And the films that I chose, every time I go back to them, they just have a certain depth to them, so that when I see them over and over again, I take something new out of it. I think after the most recent viewing, which was like a few months ago, I saw all the characters as tragic failures. No one came out of it unscathed. So that's the first one on my list, and that's why I like it. I don't really have anything final to say about it. I will definitely be returning to it in the future, and I'll have something more to say about it. So anyway.
Oh, sorry.
I got a question for you. I watched the movie not that long ago, actually, for the first time. One thing that I was interested in is I couldn't decide, like, do these characters genuinely feel everything they express, or do they fight with each other and just like tear each other apart? Because it kind of gives them a thrill and they're secretly enjoying it. Like, do you think one of those interpretations is
definitely? I mean, for these different reasons, I kind of want to see the stage version of it and have even superior actors playing out these roles, just to bring out even more of the nuance in those characters. Well, your question, yes. Of course, with varying degrees, right, depending on the character we're talking about. So, I don't know.
Now,
masochist, nihilist, or whatever.
now, if I remember correctly, I feel like I remember watching the movie and getting mad at the end. Not because it was a bad movie, but I was just like, God, all these people are terrible people. Like, I feel like.
What didn't you like about them?
Well, I feel like you wouldn't make the same mistake twice again. And correct me if I'm wrong, isn't Natalie Portman the only one that doesn't basically double cross anyone? I'm not saying she doesn't make bad choices, but I feel like at the end I was like, God, that poor girl. Like,
I feel like she actually kind of pulls the biggest double cross of all.
like at the end.
Yeah.
She doesn't like screw anyone else over, right? I feel like I can't remember this. The one thing I really remember from this movie is right at the beginning, her and Clive Owen are at the hospital. I don't remember why, but he offers her some of his tuna fish sandwich, and she goes, "Oh no, I don't eat fish." And he goes, "Why not?" She goes, "Fish shit in the ocean." And he goes, "Well, so do children." And she goes, "Well, I don't eat children either." To this day, that still sticks in my mind. Like, that is the most sound logic I've ever heard. There's nothing wrong with what she just said.
I thought the plot was really simple. I don't see it as a great narrative in its plot, but I see it as like a 4-player Marvel vs. Capcom. They switch teams.
Yes.
They're all fighting, and I suppose it's the conflict between all 4 of them. It's just really fascinating to me.
No, you're right. It was definitely. I remember watching. These are some fucked up people. I'm gonna keep watching. Like, I definitely didn't turn it off. It was a good movie. I watched all the way through.
Well, it's fascinating because they defy everything we think about, like the basic decency of human beings.
It's like no one would do. Oh, they're gonna just do that?
Yeah.
Well, good choice.
All right, Mo.
I also have a little bit of backstory leading into this one. I am, as you probably know, a big fan of comic books, and one of the things that I was looking for post graduation from high school is, well, a college, a good 4-year college, and a comic book writer that I'm a huge fan of named Brian Michael Bendis was teaching a class at Portland State University. And I decided, let's look into that. And I wound up going there. And then a year later, I took his class. I took his class on writing graphic novels. And we hung out, we talked about comics, we talked about writing comics. There were special guests. It was a lot of fun. And we watched movies. And there were 2 main movies that we watched. One of them was a documentary about Will Eisner, who's the Orson Welles of comic books. And the other one is the one that's on my list, which is American Splendor, which is based on the comic series American Splendor, which is the autobiography of Harvey Pekar. And it's just him going through his everyday life because he thought there was a lot of complexity in life and he could express that through comic books. And in the movie, they cover a lot of stuff with him. They cover how he started writing comics, how he met his wife, Joyce Brabner, his friendship with Toby Radloff, who he worked in a mailroom. He spent his life working as a file clerk for a VA hospital, and the times when he went on David Letterman, and then finally when he got cancer, and he spent a year fighting cancer. And they have actors playing all these people, but then occasionally they'll cut away and interview the real Harvey Pekar and Joyce Brabner and Toby Radloff. And it's kind of weird, but it works because Harvey Pekar, a lot of his stories were about truth, and that was what it was focused on. So even though it kind of breaks the story when you hear Harvey Pekar's narration saying, they got this guy playing me. He looks nothing like me, but whatever. But it feels real, and it's a lot of fun. Paul Giamatti plays Harvey Pekar, and he's great in it. Hope Davis, Judah Friedlander. It's a really strong cast, and it's interesting. And he was just an interesting guy. He was an insightful guy. And the other thing that I noticed when I watched it again last night was the music. Mark Slotso, which I'm probably pronouncing it wrong.
Yes, he wrote the music for another movie I'm going to talk about later, but sorry.
he did the score for it. It's this really jazz-heavy thing, a lot of horns, a lot of piano, and a lot of bass. And it fits well because Harvey Pekar, before he started writing comics, he collected records. And he talks about that in his comics, and he talks about doing that. And he collected a lot of jazz, and so it really makes sense, and it works, and it sounds great. So there's a lot to this movie. I really like it. American Splendor.